Right, now for this tutorial, what we're going to look at are all the bits and pieces of grasses and hedges and things that you need to be able to put into a picture. If you like, it's the supporting cast of a landscape painting. They won't necessarily be the main focal point, but without them, the focal point will look nothing. As the main focal point, we've got a strongly lit tree on an angle for a bit of extra interest, and it's sort of shading a couple of figures who are walking along this country lane. Well, it's more of a farm track, isn't it, really, with grass down the middle. And here we've got a few bits of bushes and twigs and what have you, a bit of a hedge here and so on and so forth, another hedge here, some more grasses here in the foreground, and a little bit of a wall here which we're going to put grasses in front of there. I wouldn't normally use all these brushes in this one picture, but it's really just to show you a number of different techniques. I'm also going to use masking fluid again to reserve some of the grasses in the foreground. Here is what's called a rubber shaper. It's actually a rubber tipped, if you can see the way that's flicking, it's a rubber tipped little, looks like a paintbrush, but it's actually a piece of rubber on the end. You can get that in different shapes, but it has a nice sharp pointed shape, so when you dip it in the masking fluid and flick it up, it creates some nice effects. Now I'm going to use about 5 paints here. I'm going to use lemon yellow, raw sienna, ultramarine blue, light red and burnt umber, but I'm also going to use the designer's gouache, and I'm going to mix that with 1 or 2 of these colours. And again, that's another alternative that I'm going to be able to show you about producing foreground grasses. Right, now for the picture, I'm going to use a piece of Bockingford paper which is pre-tinted. You can see the white against the cream, and there's quite a bit of difference. Right, I've got my little lid of masking fluid. I'm going to dip this rubber tipped shaper in, and I'm just going to flick a few grasses up. We'll have a go now with the lining pen. You can see that we've got some masking fluid in there. We'll take that off the outside edges there. Just get rid of that, and this time you can perhaps see that these lines are quite a bit more obvious. Right, but what I'm going to do first of all is to get a reasonably watery mix of raw sienna. Now that's going to give me a hint in the sky of the added warmth that we're going to get from the cream coloured paper. Right, now I'm just going to bring in some of that cloudy effect. It's not really a cloud, that'll actually dissipate. Okay, we've put in the sky with a light wash of raw sienna over the sky area and some pale ultramarine blue and light red for the cloud shadows. And I'm going to use the same ultramarine blue and light red mix for the mountains in the distance. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm going to put in a very slight wash, a few streaks here and there of raw sienna. And I'll start off here. You see, I'm not wasting too much time, because this is all about doing the trees and bushes, but it's useful to know what's going on as the relationship between the mountain and the trees. I'm now bringing in a lot of that raw sienna, particularly as we come down the mountain. Just going to add a little bit more there, because with the sun coming from the left, that's going to be slightly in shadow. Right, I've mixed up 3 colours for these middle distance trees. What I'm going to use is raw sienna primarily, with a little touch of ultramarine blue for some of the lighter areas, then the same 2 colours but with rather more ultramarine blue added, so it gives us a darker shadow colour. And I've also just mixed up a quick wash of the light red, which I'm just going to drop in here and there just to give a bit of variety in the tree colours. Now I want these trees to stand out against the distant mountains, but I don't want them so strong that they're going to dominate this tree here, which is going to be the focal point. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is to actually paint the trees in with, I was going to say clean water, but there's a little bit of the blue still on the brush, but that's no bad thing, because hopefully it'll help you see a little bit clearer what I'm trying to do. What this is going to allow me to do is to drop some of those colours in that I've just shown you. So at the moment it looks very similar to this colour tonally, but we'll sort that out in a second. Now the lights around the cameras are drying this paint off a little bit quick, so I can't hang around with this, but even so I can see this yellow paint is spreading upwards nicely in the way that I wanted it to. You can see I'm putting this on the right hand side of the trees so that they're catching the shadows, the light is being caught by the left hand side of the trees. So when I'm putting these blobs of colour on, I'm keeping that in mind all the time. Tell you what I'll do, I'll just swap brushes. I'll put this spiky one on now, and you can see it just gives that slightly more raggedy effect. What that flooding of this area initially has done is allowed the paint to blend in a very nice satisfying way, in just the way that trees really do blend together with all the different greens. Right, I've put together a little mix of lemon yellow and raw sienna. Now I'm going to add in the same colour but with a little bit more raw sienna added. You can see the difference, can't you, already? Let's look at the farm track now. What we're going to use is this quite watery mix of mainly burnt umber with some raw sienna added to it to give us the main part of the flat part of the tracks. And the shadow area of the tracks, I've used a stronger mix of the burnt umber mixed with a touch of ultramarine blue. We're just going to blob that in quite freely like that, and I'm just going to just run that alongside the base of where the grass will actually be. Back to the raw sienna and lemon colour again, stronger version of what we used in the field. You notice this time I'm just using this the number 6 brush. I'll throw in a little bit of light red just for a bit of variety here and there. Now what I'll do is take some of the darker colour I had for the track here, and I'll just drop that in. You can see the way that's just running up beautifully, and it's painting those trees, the shadow area of those trees for me. I haven't got to do anything. Tell you what, this time I think I'll use this bristle brush. It's a bit stiffer because the bristles are shorter, and it's just a replication of these trees but on a slightly stronger paint, mix, and obviously on a slightly smaller scale. Right, I'm just going to drop in some pale greys in this wall, and it's a mixture of burnt umber, touch of ultramarine blue, and a fair amount actually of raw sienna, because again I want some sunlight to be coming onto this wall. Having put that base coat on, I'll just drop in some, that's ultramarine blue again, and burnt umber,